Anthony Grasso here, providing you financial news you can use. In this video, we're going to go over the state of the stimulus negotiations as of December 17th, 2020 at 8 p.m. And we're going to go over the main point of this is all the hurdles that they have to overcome to actually pass the stimulus plan. So let's get right into it. So right now, there's a number of lingering policy disagreements on Capitol Hill as they race to finalize an approximately $900 billion coronavirus relief program package. And there are growing signs that the talks will drag on into the weekend. I will go over the number of hurdles to overcome to get this deal done. So, vexing issues is whether one vexing issue is whether to curb the powers of the Federal Reserve and how to structure a new round of stimulus checks. They also clashing over aid for theaters and music venues and relief for cities and states, among other things. Lawmakers have fought over many of these issues since May, as we know, and the issue is resolving them all at once today, creating a chaotic scene on Capitol Hill today. That's why you don't hear a lot of news today on what's going on. You just hear that they're talking. Well, the hopes were to resolve all of their differences and pass matching bills in the House and Senate by Friday night, so we can marry the stimulus bill with the must-pass government funding package that has to pass because the government shutdown is coming. And they have to pass another stopgap bill because they want to pass both all at once. This prospect appeared to slip away late Thursday, so as of tonight, it's not looking like they're going to actually pass the stimulus package by tomorrow night. And they're probably tomorrow going to focus on the stopgap spending bill Friday tomorrow to pass that. So I'm going to bring you that news when it comes in tomorrow. Then they continue negotiating in the stimulus bill through the weekend. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said late Thursday, "We need to complete this work and complete it right away. The Senate's not going anywhere until we have a COVID relief out the door. In the meantime, we're going to stay productive." So all the talks from everybody right now are saying they're huddled together, they're duking it out, and they're going to come up with a deal. So it's a deal's going to happen. It's just what's in the deal. Congressional leaders have cited significant progress in recent days as talks accelerated, but there's still a bunch of sticking points. All the aides, though, are expressing optimism that none of these issues appeared likely to prevent final passage of an agreement. The stimulus package under discussion right now, as it is tonight, it would include the $600 stimulus check for millions of Americans and $600 per child, 10 weeks of jobless aid, so it's going down from 16 weeks to 10 weeks, $330 billion in small business assistance, money for vaccine distribution, and funding for a range of other programs. And I've discussed in my previous videos that you can go check out on exactly what's in the $748 billion plan. Check that video out to see exactly the breakout of the $108 billion. Senator John Thune said lawmakers are still reviewing how to design eligibility for the stimulus checks, and that disagreements over it remains one of the biggest challenges. Thune says, and it's most likely going to be similar to what is in the CARES Act. Many other issues remain unresolved. One, Republicans were still demanding limits to the Federal Reserve and Treasury Department's emergency lending programs. Democrats say that such restrictions, pushed primarily by Senator Patrick Toomey, Republican of Pennsylvania, would constrain the ability of the incoming Biden administration to stabilize the economy during a protracted downturn. Toomey on Thursday told reporters that the issue was a bright red line for him in negotiations. So unless he gets his way on that issue, he's a no vote. Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming, the third highest-ranking Republican senator, called language on the Fed facilities critically important for GOP lawmakers, and lawmakers on Thursday were consulting with the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell about the effect of the Toomey push. So right now, and that's why I think there's going to be needing more days for a bill, because they need to investigate what all that means. That the language, like they're going to say, what's the language of that Toomey push and how does it really affect us? So they're trying to examine that right now. Democrats are seeking to include funding for the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, to give to states and cities in emergencies. But Republicans say that such a measure could amount to a form of aid for states and cities and have pushed back against it. there's been talks about, okay, well, you could put like $800 million in that package and then give it to states, but I don't think that's going to happen. Republican lawmakers agreed to drop their demands for a sweeping coronavirus liability shield in exchange for Democrats seeking to abandon their push for hundreds of billions of dollars in state and local aid. So the one for one, that's not in this bill. But the dispute about FEMA money remains unresolved. Now, the Democrats argue, on the other hand, is they say it's only $1 billion of the total package going for FEMA, and they're not adding like 300, 400 billion dollars. It's just $1 billion because the push for funding for state and local governments was about 300, 400 billion dollars. So this is just 1 billion, so that their argument is 1 billion. So we might see FEMA funds for $1 billion, maybe, but we'll see. Biden says the current stimulus relief package is encouraging. President-elect Joe Biden on December 16th called the roughly $900 billion package aid bill taking shape in Congress a down payment toward a bigger stimulus. Okay, that is really good news. That means that Biden wants to push for another stimulus package. Whether he can get another stimulus package remains to be seen, because if the Republicans hold the Senate in January, then it's going to be hard for him to push something from the House to the Senate. So you have to have the House and the Senate to get exactly what you want. But now you're going to have to work with Republicans if the Republicans hold office. So, but if the Republicans don't and the Democrats take over the Senate, then he can basically pass whatever they want. Democratic lawmakers are seeking to delay the December 31st deadline that states and cities have to spend the unused federal assistance that they've already received before that funding expires and has to be returned. Republicans, though, have been resistant to that change as well, Aide says. Democrats have insisted on an extension of the federal eviction moratorium that is set to expire by the end of the year, and they would probably extend it till April. Senate Banking Committee Chairman Mike Crapo, Republican of Idaho, told reporters today that he was seeking additional rental assistance to avoid the need for extending the moratorium. So if you have more rental assistance, you won't really need the moratorium because you'll give more aid for people. So they're working that one out. The 1 month extension in the moratorium was included in the bipartisan compromise introduced by the centrist lawmakers earlier this month. So that'd be to the end of January on the moratorium. Now the question is whether there is one needed if we get an adequate rental resistance program, Crapo said. So if you get a really great rental assistance program, you don't really need too much of a moratorium. So they're talking it out right now. We'll see exactly what comes out of it. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is pushing. It's late tonight. Is pushing a $17 billion plan called Save Our Stages to devote federal assistance to venues shut down by the pandemic and at risk of permanent closure. Some senior Republicans, though, view this request a little excessive and think some of the funding would be better spent on restaurants and additional Paycheck Protection Program assistance, according to aides familiar with internal discussions. So I'm thinking with this, it's probably going to be give a little bit of billions here and give billions there. I think they're both going to get some money out of this. It's just where are they going to put the funding at? Schumer has pushed for funding for restaurants and a second round of payment protection as well. So Schumer wants both. Republicans are trying to okay, well, we'll give you a little bit, but you have to take a little bit. And the Save Our Stages measure has some Republican support, including from Senator John Cornyn of Texas, who co-wrote a $10 billion aid bill earlier this year just for the Save Our Stages. So it does have bipartisan support. Cornyn told reporters Thursday that lawmakers are trying to reach an agreement on a funding formula for the provisions and the eligibility criteria for the pool of money, citing the needs of zoos, community theaters, museums, and other groups. This is why I'm thinking it's not going to be till tomorrow. If all these formulas going into the equation of the $900 billion plan, and they're both arguing every which way, it's going to take a few days just to sort out what formula for, the zoos, community theaters, museums, and other groups, who gets what and what amount and why, explain it, show me the facts and figures. Don't just tell me, but show me in the numbers. So that's why I'm thinking they're going to probably pass a stopgap tomorrow and then talk into the weekend and then pass something by Wednesday, the day before New Year's Eve. Okay, let's move on. I think the Federal Reserve, Thune, this is what he said. I think the Federal Reserve Authority, there's a really strong interest in making sure that door is shut. And that's a big priority for a lot of our members. Save Our Stages, I know, is in play. So Save Our Stages is in play, and there's going to be money for it. And now the scramble for a deal comes amid signs the economy is deteriorating again. I'd said in the previous video that I foresee extremely high numbers of jobless claims. You had 853,000. You had another 800 plus thousand the next week. I think we're going to go into a couple more weeks of jobless claims rising and rising and rising, and then plateau off because of all the states closing everything. And that's what I predicted last week. So you can go check those videos before. And then there's a lot more new coronavirus cases. We're going into the winter. And new restrictions on commerce. The pace of hiring is also slowed, and retail sales came in really weak right now, than expected in November, and that's an ominous sign during the holidays, because during November and December, that's when the peaks. I mean, you have Black Friday. That's when you peak your sales numbers, and they came in really, really weak. And then we also have 8 million Americans have fallen into poverty since the summer. So we have 8 more million people in poverty. Schumer and the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi spoke with Mnuchin yesterday at 10:30 p.m. I kind of spoke about that in my previous updates, and agreed to trade offers and resume conversations Thursday morning, a spokesman for Pelosi said on Twitter. So Pelosi has continued talks with Mnuchin, but nothing. They haven't really announced everything that came out of it. I think everybody's just being quiet with the press right now to actually get the job done, so there's not bickering back and forth all in the news media right now. And everyone, and this is the good statement, Schumer said in the floor speech, everyone wants to see this get done, and soon. None of the remaining hurdles cannot be overcome. So when Schumer says you can't, there's nothing we can overcome, and McConnell says we're going to stick here until we got a deal. So you have both leaders saying we're going to stick here until a deal is done. They're definitely going to get a deal. Either one's not going to really like it. They're going to hate some parts of it, both the Democrats and Republicans, but a deal is going to be done. One central unresolved matter surrounds Republicans' desire to tighten restrictions on the Federal Reserve's ability to exercise its emergency lending authority amid the pandemic. Excuse me, here it's getting late. All right, Mnuchin in November moved to wind down several emergency credit facilities totaling $500 billion that were authorized by the CARES Act passed in March, and he basically just took all that money back. But several Republicans, led by Tomley, the incoming leader of the Senate Banking Committee, wants firmer limitations on the Fed's statutory powers to intervene under unusual and exigent circumstances. Tomley included language in a GOP-drafted coronavirus aid proposal that was blocked by Senate Democrats in September that would affirmatively prevent the Fed from pursuing any further lending past early January for facilities funded by the CARES Act. Republicans are pushing to include similar language in the pending bill, but Democrats are fiercely resisting the move right now, saying it will hamstring President-elect Joe Biden and his nominee for Treasury Secretary, former Fed Chair Janet Yellen, as they seek to guide the economic recovery. It's no surprise that Republicans are drawing a line in the sand over their ability to sabotage the economy and tie the Biden administration's hands. That's what Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon said, and that's the ranking Democrat on the Senate Finance Committee. Senator John Tester, Democrat of Montana, also criticized the timing of the change, calling it pretty obviously suspect. Playing politics here. The various lending facilities include funds meant to ensure liquidity in various commercial credit markets, as well as vehicles to back Main Street loans for small businesses and to buy up municipal obligations from states and certain large cities and counties. And basically that's freeing up their balance sheets among fiscal distress. The latter program, which held $1.45 billion in bonds at the end of November, is of special note because the federal aid to states and cities has become politically treacherous on Capitol Hill, and many Republicans have pointedly opposed any aid that could be construed as helping to bail jurisdictions out of fiscal distress that predated the pandemic. So Republicans are basically put their foot in the sand and said, okay, right before the pandemic, you were in trouble right here, and now the pandemic hit. Well, we're going to give you aid for anything that happened after the pandemic hit, but if you were in financial distress before the pandemic, we don't want to give you anything. So we're only going to supply enough funds for what happened during the pandemic. And the legislation taking shape right now is expected to vote about $330 billion for small business relief, including $257 billion for another round of Paycheck Protection funding program. Firms, though, would likely be required to show declines in revenue as great as 25% to qualify for that assistance. The measure would also have aid directly targeted to the restaurant industry, which is bracing for a severe downturn amid the closure of winter dining due to the surging pandemic. And congressional leaders have said they would provide about $300 a week in additional federal unemployment benefits, and those benefits will last for 10 weeks rather than the 16 weeks called for in the bipartisan plan. So I went over the bipartisan plan, and now I'm thinking one called for like 14 weeks, and then now they said 16. It was really just 16 weeks. Now they said 10 weeks, but I'm predicting that it'll probably be 13 or 14 weeks, because if you think about the months, January, February, March, that's 3 months. 3 months, probably 10 to 12 to 13 weeks, roughly. And then they'll probably try to pass another bill in April. So that'd be my prediction on this. And they want to, cutting off 6 weeks of unemployment program that would save about $40 billion. And base unemployment benefits and federal unemployment program created in March for gig workers and independent contractors and other ineligible for traditional unemployment are also expected to be extended for about 10 weeks. The legislation would not retroactively cover unemployment benefits after the $600 a week benefit approved by Congress expired this summer. So that's a bummer. That's pretty big. So they're not going to go retroactive with these jobless benefits of that $300 a week. I would have loved at least they would have retroactively went back to, let's say, November and paid out November and December. But they're basically saying, as of, it's new. It's like as of January 1st then. So that's kind of a bummer for us. Republicans are also seeking to require beneficiaries from the federal unemployment benefit to receive at least $100 per week in state unemployment benefits. Now, and Democratic aides have rejected that proposal. To me, that's idiotic. And that's what Trump passed, with his executive action. To get, remember those few weeks back when he signed that, we got about 3-4 weeks, I would say, of unemployment benefits of $300-400 a week, I think it was, months ago. Well, you have to receive at least $100 per week. I'm like, this is nonsensical to me. The White House had a similar provision in the unilateral action it took over the summer to extend the federal unemployment benefits. It was similar to that. And Republicans say that the measure necessary to prevent fraud in the unemployment system. If you're unemployed, you're unemployed. Whether you get $100 or the state's maximum, you're still unemployed. While Democrats contend it cruelly cuts out the lowest earners out of the government assistance. I agree right there. Now, you just everybody needs assistance right now. That person's still making only $100 in unemployment. They want a job. Just give them the assistance they need. That's what I'm arguing. White House proposes dramatically lowering unemployment benefit in exchange for the $600 stimulus check. Now, I think you should include the stimulus checks and the unemployment benefits, but the White House is basically arguing, oh, well, but Trump kept saying he wanted a bunch of stimulus checks and he was going to give unemployment aid, but now he's bickering back and forth. It's crazy. The bill is expected to include a second round of stimulus payments, but the $600 per person rather than the $1,200 per person approved in March. It's likely to provide both $600 per adult and $600 per child. Eligibility would be based on the same income threshold as in the CARES Act. So if you made less than $75,000 in the previous year, you're most likely to get the entire $600. But the per child is not going to be, there's not going to be a cap on that. So if you have 5 kids, 10 kids, 2 kids, It's going to be per child. So if you have 10 kids, 10 times 600, that'd be $6,000 plus you 600. If you're married, another 600. So, and then it's going to cap off entirely between $75,000 and $99,000. Thune suggested to reporters on Thursday that lawmakers were considering lowering that threshold to keep the cost of the provision down. Senator Bernie Sanders, who among with Josh Hawley, has pushed for a second round of stimulus checks, told reporters he opposes lowering the income cap. There are expected to be 2 other significant policy changes to how the stimulus checks are dispersed. Adults who are claimed as dependents would be eligible for checks, unlike the previous round of payments. And the final measure is likely to be similar to legislation by Senator Marco Rubio to give stimulus payments to U.S. citizens and their children, even if they are married to non-citizens. Aides say discussions were fluid and policies have not been finalized yet. Thune suggested Wednesday that lawmakers may seek to prevent people on unemployment benefits from also receiving the $600 stimulus payments, although he appeared to back off that proposal Thursday. Yes, I agree with that. I mean, right now you're giving stimulus checks to people who are unemployed, who are employed. So somebody that's making money, you're giving them $600. Now you're saying if somebody is unemployed and only making a very small amount, you're not going to give them stimulus payments. I'm glad he backed off of that, because that's just crazy talk right there. Aide said that suggestion has been rejected by congressional Democrats and was likely to be incorporated in a final agreement. Okay, so that's the state of the hurdles in the stimulus negotiations as of December 17, 2020, and where it stands right now and what's likely going to be in the bill. I will come back with you tomorrow when stimulus updates are coming in throughout the day, so stay tuned with me. And if you like this video, smash that like button down below and click the bobblehead right in the middle of the screen to add me. To subscribe to me for more updates, not only with stimulus, but anything financial related that will benefit you. Ciao.